Hey guys, what's up? I know that for those of you who've been following my channel, there has been a little bit of a lull in videos, a few weeks of no videos uploaded, and there's a good reason behind that, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit today as we talk about how to recognize the signs of burnout and also how to overcome it if you feel it coming on, or how to prevent it altogether. Burnout is a very real thing, and it's the kind of insidious thing that comes on over the course of weeks and weeks. And if we don't sort of nip it in the bud, so to speak, and start to deal with it and remove stress from our lives, it's, in terms of all entrepreneurs, all people really, but definitely in terms of writers, it can be very dangerous, because the number one thing that we need to do as writers, I mean, there's a lot of little marketing and all those types of things that need to be done, but the number one focus should always be on the writing and the art and the work and the creating, which is very hard to do if you're completely burned out. Trust me when I say this is something I know from very deep experience. I started out in 2010 after I had been writing and learning to be a writer for over 3 years, but I published my first book in late 2010, and I kind of, just went 100%, full force, full throttle, like Tesla levels of 0 to 60 in 1.2 seconds or whatever ridiculous ludicrous mode there is on a Tesla. That was my life at the time, and I was also going through infertility treatments, which just so happened to start the same month that I started publishing, which, looking back on it, I'm like, gosh, how did I get so much done when I was going through that? Maybe it was an escape, but I hit this point after a few years of publishing where I started to feel the burnout. And because I ignored the signs of it and I just kept thinking, I need to work harder, I need to do more, it started to be, something that started to pull me down into depression, where I no longer took joy in the things that I used to love, like writing, which was a problem. So for the last 2 years, in 2016 and 2017, I did manage to put out 2 books each year, which isn't terrible, but in the indie space, it's not the best I can do, and it's also not really the best way to run your career. It'd be great to get at least 3 to 4 books out a year if you can. And I knew this, and I had already started, I've talked about this before, I had started so many different series that only writing 2 books a year meant I couldn't even put out 1 book in each series every year, and it started to affect my sales and my income and things like that, which then only led me to more stress and trying to work harder. So it became this very vicious cycle. And I know that you guys watching may have any range of stress in your life. You may be working a full-time job and trying to write at night when you come home. You may have 3 small children at home. You may have a lot of family stress or a lot of income stress, or any number of things that we tend to face as humans. So it's like, how do you recognize the signs of burnout? How do you know the difference between I'm just having a bad day and I'm really in a dangerous place? And then how do you overcome it? So let's really dive into this subject. So the first thing that you need to do is to learn to recognize the signs of burnout. When we're talking about serious burnout, we're talking about things like chronic fatigue, that when you get up in the morning, you're already tired, even though maybe you slept a good 8 hours last night. Or if you're really falling into depression and things are getting bad, maybe you slept 10 hours and you wake up and you just still feel tired. Another problem that I know a friend of mine faces, and I've had this before, is like, I feel awake, I feel ready to go, and then the minute I sit down to do my writing, I'm falling asleep at the keyboard. This is a sign of burnout or stress, because it's like your body is literally avoiding the one thing that you need to get done, which is a warning sign, honestly. So you've got chronic fatigue. For some of us, there's also insomnia. And I think part of what plays into that is this idea that we've got so many things that we know we need to do in our heads. So we're like laying in bed at night knowing that we need to shut down, but we've been on our phones, on social media, we've been, writing all day, coming up with ways to improve our sales or get more words in. And so when we're in bed at night, it's the first time we've actually kind of taken a break, and our mind just goes crazy with these lists of all these things that need to get done, or that how can I do this? How can I strategize? Well, when you're laying down to rest, this is not a time for strategizing. It's a time for actual rest. But that kind of stress can lead to insomnia, which then leads to the chronic fatigue and depression. So there we go into this vicious cycle. Another sign is that you've been under a high period of stress or a high level of stress for a long period of time. That is also a sign. So look back at the last 6 months of your life. Have you had any breaks? Have you had any vacations? Have you taken time to do the things that you love to do? Or have you been under a lot of stress for a long period of time? Because that can also be kind of a warning sign or a red flag. Another thing is that you can start to lose focus or concentration. Word retrieval is a big problem for me when I get really stressed or burned out. I start to, even in normal conversation with my husband or my best friend, I start to blank out on what I was going to say next, or it's like I can't find the right word for something. Or it can also manifest itself in I sit down to write, but I cannot seem to focus. There's so many distractions. Even if I turn my phone off, I'm closeted away here in the office, I just can't seem to focus on the story. So a lack of focus, a lack of concentration or word retrieval, those kind of things can be a great sign of burnout if you're experiencing that, because it's like our mind is so overwhelmed with stress that we can't seem to really get into that flow zone where we're really concentrating and we're getting that work done. Another sign is illness, or any kind of physical symptom. So if you are starting to notice that you're just feeling under the weather, and maybe you've even been to the doctor and they can't figure out what's wrong with you, but you just sort of feel like you've always got, for me, it can turn out to be I feel like my brain is pressing on the inside of my skull. I know that sounds weird, but it's just this constant pressure of all the things I need to do, and I can feel that stress manifesting itself in not always a headache, but just that feeling of malaise, generally not feeling good about things. And also just another thing for me personally is when I get super stressed, my eyelid starts to twitch, and so I know, okay, maybe I've been under stress for a really long time and I need to chill out. So you might find different physical manifestations. Your joints might start to ache. You might start to have chest pains or feel like you can't breathe. But if you start to feel those physical manifestations, I would say you're getting into a pretty high level of danger when it comes to burnout. So really pay attention to your body and how you're feeling, because those can also be signs. Another thing is that you might start to get really cynical, or you might start to be kind of snappy or angry at people, irritable. That kind of stuff is another sign of burnout, as is anxiety, which anxiety can manifest itself in the same ways I was talking about with the physical symptoms, like feeling tightening in your chest, or you can't breathe, or that you can't get good rest, or you're never feeling rested or wide awake. Those kinds of things are major signs of burnout. Just a few more, because I think this is super important, is, burnout kind of can manifest itself in different ways for different people. So you need to learn to recognize the signs that are pertinent to you. So I want to kind of go through a lot of them. I did take some of these notes from Psychology Today article that I will link down below for you, because it had a lot of the basic signs of burnout, which I think are really important to explore for yourself. But feeling detached from your life, from your goals, you're just no longer feeling motivated for what you really wanted to do. You're kind of especially for me, it becomes, I no longer really even know what to do for fun. And this is something I realized a couple weeks ago, and that's why I took a break from some of the videos, because I was trying to record at least 2 videos a week, which takes a lot of time for not only planning them, but also the process of editing them, getting it up, marketing them. And then I've published 3 books this year, which is really, I was telling you 2 books a year for the last 2 years. So 3 books already this year, or 5 books in the last 7 months, has been a high level of stress. Plus we moved to a new city. I started to notice that when I would have a couple of hours on a rare night to do something just for me, I had no idea what I wanted to do, because it seemed like no matter what I tried to sit down and do, nothing seemed fun anymore. I didn't want a game. I have all these PS4 games that I wanted to play, but nothing sounded interesting. I didn't want to sit and watch TV. It was just I feel like I'm just gonna go to bed, because I could not think of anything fun to do. Guys, I live 2 miles from the beach, and I didn't even want to go to the beach. So finding that you're not taking pleasure in the things that you normally enjoy, that's a huge sign of burnout, as is just basic depression, like feeling hopeless, feeling worthless, feeling like you're putting all this effort out and not seeing anything in return, wanting to sleep, wanting to detach yourself from the things that you normally enjoy. These are all huge signs of burnout. So however it manifests for you, learning to recognize the signs of burnout is the first step. Now let's talk about how to make changes, because if you're seeing that you're on this path and you're seeing some of these symptoms start to creep into your everyday life, you can stop it and you can make some changes now that will make a significant impact on your life in the weeks to come. The crazy thing about burnout is that it's not like, if you're deep into burnout and stress, it's not like you can take a 2-hour break and suddenly you're just going to feel better for the rest of your life. That's just not how it works. It takes weeks, if not months, for it to build up, which means it's sadly going to take you weeks of change and consistent change, taking the stressful things out of your life and focusing on more positive things for a long period of time before you're going to really start to feel better. So this is an investment in yourself. And, I know that the buzzword is like self-care, but it is so important to actually take the time to take care of yourself. So let's talk about how to make these changes that can help you to either avoid burnout or how to overcome it if you're already there. So the key here is making changes. And the way that I suggest you can go about this is, number one, sit down and make a list of all the things that you feel like you need to get done. Like all the sort of like a brain dump of everything that you need to get done, everything that's on your plate, and then maybe rate them on a stress level. Like, the writing lately has been stressing you out. On a 0 to 5, it's been a 5 because you feel like every word you've put on the page is crap. So put a 5 by that. Go in and rate those sort of in terms of stress. Then go through and find the most stressful things in your life and come up with a plan. Now, this is going to take time, and I know that part of the high stress is I don't have enough time, but it's so important because when you hit a deep level of burnout like I did over the last couple of years, it's like you completely cease to be productive for months and months on end. So trust me when I say that taking like a weekend or a few hours one day to make this list and really start thinking of how to implement changes in your life is going to be worth it in the long run. So make this list, pick out the things that are most stressful. Then make a plan for how you can decrease some of the stress surrounding those items. So for example, if you're expecting yourself to write 5,000 words a day, and that's super stressing you out because you've got a deadline to get this book done, June 5th or whatever, you can do a number of things. You can find a different method of writing so that you can reward yourself, like, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do a 30-minute sprint, and then I'm going to reward myself with a walk on the beach. Or I'm going to sit down and do a 30-minute sprint, 2 30-minute sprints, and then I'm going to go play a game for a little while and just sort of use it as a reward. Or on the flip side, if you just don't feel like writing that many words a day, maybe you're pushing yourself too hard. So you need to say, okay, I'm going to cut that in half. I'm going to go down to 2,500 words a day, and I'm going to push this deadline back. Pushing deadlines back can be very difficult, especially if you've already announced it to your readers or you've got an editor booked. But sometimes the reality is that you just have to do it because those deadlines are causing so much stress that you're impairing your own physical health and mental well-being, and you've got to make that a priority so that you can continue to create your best work. Take the time to figure out how to reduce stress in those areas of your life. Another example might be, maybe you're belonging to a Facebook group or a group of writers who are constantly complaining or being negative about the state of the industry is, or how few words they're getting done, or how little money they're making. Or you might be a member of a group where everyone's bragging all the time about how many words they got and it's depressing you or causing you stress. That one's simple. Just completely step away from that Facebook group or that group of friends for a little while until you get a better perspective. These are just some very simple examples of what you can do to start to eliminate those stress. Another thing is you can start to delegate. So if you have, a mountain of laundry and you've got taking your son to soccer practice or something every Tuesday, maybe you could talk to your husband or your mom or, another one of the parents that also does soccer and set up some sort of carpooling so that you can only go every other Tuesday and you take both kids, or your husband helps out with the laundry, or you get your mom to come over once a week and help you clean the house. or hire a housekeeper that helps you get things clean if you're able to do that. But start to go down that list of the things that are stressing you out the most and find just simple ways to reduce the stress. Another thing that I like to do is to journal. It's just a matter of getting those feelings down on paper instead of bottling them up and thinking, that I'm internalizing them all the time. Sometimes just the simple act of journaling how you feel all the time can help. Another thing that I like to do is meditate. I created a little altar in my bedroom, a very peaceful space. I have candles there. I have things that just remind me of my family or things that bring me joy. I have a candle there that I light every morning. I say a prayer. I think of and focus on gratitude, things that I'm grateful for in my life. And this is how I choose to start my day. And then I sit down and I just close my eyes. You don't have to sit in a certain position. You don't have to do anything fancy, but just sort of closing my eyes, focusing on my breathing, letting my mind rest from all the things that need to get done is a great way to start my day. And then when I start to feel stressed throughout the day, I can go back. I can either sit there, I can sit on my porch, I could sit here right in front of my desk and do the same thing. If you can begin to sort of get to the root of who you are, the root of your joy, the root of your desires, and push all those worries outside of yourself for a little while, it's going to really start to center you. It's made a huge impact in my life. Another thing that you can do is disconnect from social media, from your phones, from your computer for a little while. Like as authors, especially once you get to be a published author or you're already promoting your work, I feel like we're always plugged in all the time, and that can add so much stress. I started to notice, like, even when I would get a little bit of free time, I would be on Facebook, like replying to comments, going into groups of authors, and it was like all I was ever doing was focusing on my work and how to market better or how to get more sales. Being on social media where people present their best self often, it is very difficult not to try to compare myself with that and think about all the ways that I'm failing as a human being. One of the best ways for me to step back from that is to completely unplug, disconnect from the internet for a while, do stuff with my family, do stuff that I really enjoy, and that really helps a lot to sort of step away from social media. You can also spend time with friends outside of work. So yes, my best friend is a writer and we talk all the time about the business of writing, but it also is really good sometimes to not necessarily step away from those friends that you love that are in the writing community, but to also go out and socialize with other people. You can also just say no when people ask you to do new things, like, whether it's your fans saying, oh, I really want this book, or why aren't you writing faster? Or if it's your PTA is saying, can you come and you do this special weekend thing? Or can you help us plan this? Or, whatever it is that people are coming to you asking for you to do, you can completely say no. That is your right to do so. And you can't worry about what people are going to think. You just need time because you've got too much on your plate, and it's okay to say no. This can't be stressed enough, but taking me time, like we talked about self-care, taking time to do things that you really love, like make a list while we're making lists, start a new notebook and make a list of the things that you really always enjoyed doing, but you haven't had the time to do lately. If you're in a high state of burnout, you might look at that list and be like, I don't feel like doing any of these things. But in the end, if you force yourself to, you just say, okay, I'm going to make a date with myself and I'm going to go get my nails done. I promise you will feel better when you're done. On another note, one thing that you may want to do is set work hours for yourself for a little while. I know that as indie authors, we tend to take on and have a lot to do, whether you're already published or you're looking to get published and finish your first book. Whichever state you're in, there's always so much that needs to get done. And I know for me, it's like the day doesn't end at 5 p.m. just because that's when the normal world ends their job. I continue to work all the way through dinner, then I cook dinner, clean up from dinner, do another bit of marketing or whatever needs to get done, put my son in the bath, then I was working again at night, and it was like just constantly from the time I get up until the time I went to bed, I was thinking about my to-do list and all the things that needed to get done, and I wasn't taking any time for myself. So one thing that you could do to combat that is to say, okay, I'm gonna work from 8 to noon, and then I'm going to take a lunch break until 1, and I'm going to work from 1 to 4. And at 4 o'clock every day, I am done working. Or if you have a full-time job and you get home at 5, you can say, okay, every day when I get home, I'm going to take 1 hour to sort of decompress, get myself in the right mindset for working. I'm going to exercise or do whatever. And then from 6 to 7 every single night, I'm going to write. And then that's the end of my work day. Whether I got as many words as I wanted or not, I am done working. I'm going to put it aside and I'm going to be proud of myself. But setting those sort of parameters, those limits on how many hours you're going to work can also really help with burnout. Okay, I know this is getting long, but this is such an important topic, so I hope that you guys are still here with me. So I mentioned exercise just a minute ago. Exercise is another good one. I am not like one of those people that like rah loves to like go to the gym and exercise, but I have been enjoying walks on the beach, doing a little bit of yoga in the morning. I've really been enjoying like Kundalini yoga, which is all about the breath. It's just something that sort of centers me. Plus it gets those endorphins going. It gets, it can help combat depression because of the good vibes and the good, science stuff. You also need to really pay attention to the basics like eating right, sleeping, drinking lots of water. When you're trying to overcome burnout, it's important to just step back and pay attention to your most basic needs, including getting enough sleep, getting enough to eat, making sure that you're filling your body with healthy things. I did kind of talk about this a little bit, but don't hang out with people that are complaining all the time, whether that be like your mother or your friend or your sister or a Facebook group or a group online. If people are complaining all the time or being really negative, it's just going to compound your own feelings of hopelessness. So just say no to that groups of people. It can be very difficult to cut toxic people out of your life. But whether you do it for a period of time or for the rest of your life, it is good for your mental well-being to step back from people who are negative or people who make you feel bad about yourself and your current state of being. Another great thing that you can do is to focus on gratitude instead of focusing on the things that you haven't gotten done or the things that you want to achieve, and your goal, very goal oriented, because the more you can focus on how lucky you are and how blessed you are, the more you're going to start to pull yourself out of this like constantly negative thinking spiral. So just 3 more little tips that I want to share with you. One is to learn to let go of the outcomes. I think that often as entrepreneurs and as writers, we're focused on the outcome, like getting the book done, how the sales are going to go, how much income there's going to be, am I ever going to get a movie deal? Whatever that outcome is that you're so focused on and you're so trying to get to, we focus so hard on that outcome. And some of those things are very long-term goals that, when we're not seeing the outcomes that we want, we can start to get into that really depressed state or that state of burnout. So it's very important to switch your focus from the outcome to the productivity. So instead of judging yourself based on how many books you sold today or how much money you made today, focus instead on what progress you made in your work in progress. Did you get 1,000 words, instead of focusing on, I'm going to write 5,000 words a day. Did you sit down and work on that? Yes. Okay. Stop focusing so much on the end game in terms of the outcome, especially outcomes that you have no control over. If you can't control something, it's still fine to have it as a goal. I have outcome goals for sure, but I don't stress them if I don't exactly achieve them. If I say I wanted my income to be $16,000 a month and I only make it to $11,000, I cannot focus or be sad about that income because it is still amazing and it's still a step in the right direction. And so I'm focusing more on the fact that I got that book out, I finished a series, or I did whatever that I needed to do. And then the things that I can't control, I have to learn to just let them go. And this is a really hard thing that might take a long time, especially if you're really, really outcome goal focused. But working on this through journaling, talking with other people is really important. I think it's also important to remember that there is no deadline for success. It's not like God came down and said, you must be a successful 6-figure author by the time you're 40 years old or you're a loser. I mean, that's just not the way it works. Like sometimes things don't happen on our schedule. So remember that there's no deadline for massive success. You could hit it in the next 6 months, or you could hit it in the next 6 years. You have to learn to find joy in the process. And I know this is really hard when there's so many things we want to achieve, but if you focus more on the productivity instead of that end result. Like, you want to be published, yes, that's great, but focus on actually writing the book and having joy in the process of writing the book instead of trying to make everything perfect, because there's no like divine deadline for when you have to make your dreams come true. But I will tell you that if you focus more on that desire for the success and the money to come, or whatever it is that your big like someday goal is, like for your number one goal in life, if you're focusing only on that, you're going to suck the joy out of the day-to-day process. And without that day-to-day work and taking joy in your work and really being excited to sit down and write every day, you're never going to hit that outcome. And that's one of the weird, crazy things about life, is like, I think we need to really find that goal, know that we want it, and then send it out into the universe and say, okay, that is going to be me someday. And in order to get there, I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to do what I love, because that's what's going to bring me joy. And that brings me to one of my final tips, which is something that made a huge impact on my life a couple of years ago and started me down the path to completely overcoming burnout and getting back on track with my goals and my writing career, which is I had a life coach who steered me in the direction of a book called The Desire Map by Danielle Laporte. And this was huge for me. And what she talks about in this book is that we should be focusing not on what we want to achieve or what we want to do, but rather on how we want to feel. I can't even go into everything she talks about in this book, but if you check out the Desire Map, I will also link that down below for you if you're interested in it. What I ended up doing was taking a 3-day weekend in Savannah by myself in a nice hotel, and I went through every inch of that book, filled it. It's kind of a workbook, so you fill out everything and you decide, what are my core desired feelings? How do I most want to feel? Which is such a liberating idea of how do you want to feel every day. Like, at first when I was going through the book, I kept finding out that like I would say that something was a feeling, but then I would realize that's not really a feeling, that's an outcome. Like, I want to feel wealthy, but the truth is I wanted to be rich. And it's like, okay, this is where the mindset shift needs to happen, is because I want to be rich is the wrong side of the equation from what she's talking about. She's saying, how do you want to feel? And it's like, once I started really getting what she was saying, like, how do I want to feel every single day? I started to realize that there were things I could do every single day that would make me feel the way I want to feel, regardless of how much money I had in the bank, regardless of how many books I was selling every day, or how many books I had put out that day. If I want to feel inspired, then I can do things that make me feel inspired. And it started getting my mind into the right place of like, I can feel inspired no matter how many books I'm selling over here. And so I started focusing on things that make me feel, that spark of creativity, playing music every day, sitting down in the office and coming up with like a little ritual that made me feel inspired, reading other people's books, watching videos like this that have helped me to, get my mind in the right place, and like writing vlogs and things like that. It's like the things that make me feel inspired don't cost money. They just are mindset shifts. It's a decision that you're going to, feel this way no matter what. And so it's less focused on the things you want to do and the things you want to achieve, and more focused on the way you want to feel. Because as she says, if you're feeling that way every single day, and you're focusing on those core desired feelings, then you're going to be a happier, more fulfilled person in the long run than if you just spent your whole life chasing this idea of like being rich or something like that. I'm totally oversimplifying it, but pick up the Desire Map if you get a chance. It's another great tool if you're really facing burnout. Okay, so one of the longest videos that I've done so far. I hope that you guys are still with me and that this has made an impact in your life. Let me know in the comments down below if you've ever faced burnout, or if you feel like you're feeling some of the symptoms of it now, and what you plan to do to combat that or to pull yourself back from that feeling of burnout. For me, like I said, I needed to take a few weeks off of doing the videos and having so much on my plate. And I know that in terms of like marketing and consistency, I needed to get those videos out there. And maybe what I'll do is record a bunch of extra videos when I'm feeling extra inspired, so that I have something that I can put up if I ever feel that burnout again. But I know in the deepest part of myself that I have to take care of myself first so that I can take care of everyone else. And that includes those of you watching my YouTube channel. I wouldn't have anything great or inspirational to say to you if I was feeling hopeless and depressed all the time. So when I felt those symptoms of burnout coming on and I recognized them from a long period of burnout in my life, I knew that I had to make some changes. And so part of that was stepping back for a few weeks and taking more time to myself, pushing back a few deadlines and things like that. Again, let me know in the comments if you've ever faced burnout in this way, or if you feel it coming on, what you plan to do, or what tips have worked for you in the past to help you lower your stress and avoid burnout. Okay guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you're still here watching this super long video. If you have enjoyed this, I hope you'll check out some of my other videos, hit the thumbs up button down below, and also subscribe and hit that bell for notifications so that you'll be notified the next time a video from Heart Breathings goes up. All right, I will see you soon. I've got some plotting videos coming up, look inside my office tour, and also some writing vlogs and fun things coming in the next few weeks. So I hope you'll join me and subscribe. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Bye.